The rain was falling softly on the small white house at the end of Birchwood Lane. Inside, the quiet was broken only by the tick of an old wall clock and the occasional creak of the floor as the house settled in the damp. Night air upstairs. In a modest bedroom with pale blue walls, Emily Carter lay propped up against a mound of pillows. Her chestnut hair framed a face far too pale for her 17 years. Beside her, the wheelchair stood as a silent reminder of the accident that had stolen her ability to walk. At her side, resting his head gently on her lap, was Ranger, a 3-year-old German shepherd with intelligent amber eyes. To the world, he was her service dog. To Emily, he was her anchor, her confidant, her reason to keep going. Most days were quiet, too quiet. But tonight, something in Emily's eyes was different. She glanced toward the closed door, then leaned close to Ranger. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Ranger, he was here again. It's the man from the garage, and I know what he did." Ranger's ears twitched, his amber eyes locking onto hers. Emily's fingers trembled as she stroked his fur. "You have to show them. You're the only one who can." From that moment, something changed. Ranger paced the room, returning to her side, then moving to the window, sniffing the air. Downstairs, her mother Margaret noticed when he came, trotting into the living room, barking once before running to the front door. "What is it, boy?" she asked, opening it. Ranger didn't step outside. He just stared into the dark street, ears pricked forward, listening. That night, he didn't sleep at the foot of Emily's bed. Instead, he lay by the door, watchful, guarding. The next morning, Ranger refused his treat. Instead, he stood at the garage door, sniffing, scratching. Later, Margaret wheeled Emily into the kitchen. "Emily, has Ranger been acting strange to you?" Emily hesitated. Maybe he's just bored. But she knew better. She remembered the man from the garage, and the thing she had seen that evening as the family sat in the living room. Ranger's sharp bark made Margaret jump. He stood rigid at the front window. Elisa saw it under the lamppost. A man stood motionless, watching. Closer, the man turned and walked away into the darkness. Over the next few days, Ranger became relentless, followed them everywhere, ears perking at the slightest sound. On the 4th night, Margaret woke to the sound of scratching at the back door. Ranger stood there, growling, his body tense. She switched on the porch light. Nothing, just the wet yard. But Ranger didn't move, his eyes locked on the dark. 3 nights later, it happened. Just past midnight, Ranger shot up from his post by Emily's door. Without warning, he bounded down the stairs, barking with a ferocity Margaret had never heard before. Emily, heart pounding, grabbed her phone and dialed 911. Downstairs, glass shattered. Margaret froze in the hallway as growls filled the house. Then, silence. "Ranger," she called. There was a scuffle, more barking, then the slam of the back door. Moments later, police lights flashed outside. When they entered, Ranger stood. In the kitchen, chest heaving, fur damp, and his muzzle stained dark. From the top of the stairs, Emily's voice trembled. "He found him." One of the officers looked up. "Found who?" Emily's eyes welled with tears. "The man from the garage. The one who hurt her." She nodded toward her mother. Margaret's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" Emily swallowed hard. "Ranger knows where he is." "What?" "He did." The officer's jaw tightened. "Show us." Ranger barked once, sharply, then trotted to the back door, ready to lead them into the dark. The night air was cold and heavy with the scent of wet earth. Ranger stood at the back door, muscles taut, tail rigid, eyes locked on the shadows beyond the porch. The officer gave a single nod. "All right, boy, show us." Margaret's hands shook as she wrapped her robe tighter. Emily sat at the top of the stairs, clutching her phone, watching as Ranger stepped into the yard, his paws silent against the damp grass. The 2 officers followed close behind, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Ranger moved with purpose, not wandering, not sniffing randomly, but leading, across the yard, through the rusted side gate, and into the narrow alley behind. The row of houses, every few steps, He looked back to make sure they were following. The alley opened into the small patch of woods that separated Birchwood Lane from the old service station. It's the same station where Emily had seen the man. The same place she hadn't dared to speak about until now. A sudden low growl rumbled from Ranger's chest. He stopped at the edge of the trees, ears forward, eyes fixed on a dark silhouette half hidden among the trunks. Police. One of the officers shouted, their flashlight beams snapping to the figure. The man turned to run, but he never made it. Far. Ranger lunged, his powerful frame cutting through the wet leaves, bringing the stranger crashing to the ground. The officers were on him in seconds, pulling Ranger back, snapping cuffs around the man's wrists. Name's Carl Mason, one officer muttered. Been on our radar for months. Margaret's voice cracked as she stepped forward. What? What does he have to do with us? The answer came from Emily, her voice trembling but steady. He was here the night Dad's accident happened. I saw him arguing with Dad in the garage. I thought it was just about money, but the night you fell down the basement stairs, Mom. Margaret's breath caught. Heard him in the house, Emily continued. I couldn't move fast enough to help you. I tried to call out, but my voice. She swallowed hard. He saw me watching. Told me if I told anyone, he'd come back for you. For both of us. The officer glanced at Ranger, who sat by Emily's wheelchair, his amber eyes burning with protectiveness. And you told him, he said softly. Emily nodded. I told Ranger. It's the only one I trusted. And he remembered? The truth unfolded like a nightmare laid bare. Carl Mason wasn't just a drifter, he had a record. Assault, breaking and entering, suspected of running a theft ring from the service station. The night Margaret fell had not been an accident. Back at the house, the police worked through the early hours, taking statements, collecting evidence. Ranger never left Emily's side, except once when he walked over to Margaret and placed his head gently on her knee, as if to say, "You're safe now," as dawn broke. Pale gold lights spilling across the kitchen floor, Margaret knelt beside. Ranger, tears in her eyes. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. Emily's voice was soft but sure. You already have. You believed in him. Weeks later, Carl Mason sat in jail, awaiting trial. Evidence from the service station tied him to multiple crimes. The Carter home felt lighter somehow, the shadows gone. But for Emily, the world had changed in another way. She still couldn't walk. But she had learned that courage could speak without words. Sometimes it only needed a whisper, and someone who would listen. And for Ranger, he had never needed medals or applause. His reward was simple, the quiet moments at Emily's side, the feel of her hand on his fur, and the knowledge that he had done what he was born to do. Protect, because when a girl with no voice for the world spoke to him, he heard her, and he made the world listen.